And this is different.
Great. Evening. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. Everything all pretty good weekend? We didn't think too much about spreadsheets and numbers. I will pass it to our police staff, just talk about some of the documents before you. We'll continue on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So there are several documents before you. I'll briefly go over them. Most of them we're going to be discussing during the meeting today, and I'll just gloss over kind of what the changes were. So first, of course, you have the agenda. The general obligation bond debt service, that sheet has been updated to make sure that it reflects the current debt service payment. There was some discrepancy as far as some of the backup documents that I had. And so I met with our debt service manager to make sure that I had the accurate numbers. So this reflects the accurate numbers. Then additionally in parks and recreation, there was a change. So there was a question about the utilities and why those estimated costs were going to be around $71,000 projected for year end. David and I discussed it a little further. We're not sure how that number came up. And the revised numbers around 48,000, which is right around where budget is. So we're not sure where that initial number came from. Could have been transition. We're not sure. And then additionally, the park system development charge page. What we decided to do here is add funding for an additional project. This is going to be discussed with David a little later, so he'll go into more detail on that. Then skip the budget summary for right now. The transit fund, there was some updated revenues that I was not aware of that we are receiving in this current fiscal year that actually impacts the beginning fund balance or working capital into next year. So I updated those numbers, and Rochelle and I will be talking about this fund a little bit later as well. Power and light, there were a couple changes here. One of them was that Wade and I were reviewing the overtime budget that had been identified, and it was way too low. So we did increase that by approximately, I think it's almost $55,000. Because it was budgeted at around $7 million. So he'll talk a little bit more to that later on. Additionally, in the grants fund, we had talked about this at the last committee meeting. Suzanne identified that we got another community block grant. So in order to make sure that it's included in our adopted budget, I added the $375,000 to our grant fund. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in our narrative of the grant fund. With all that, there's a lot of puts, not takes, but puts, which actually changed our budget summary. So it changed the bottom line. So we're looking at a budget of about 51.9 million instead of the little over 49.5. So That's why I gave you a new budget summary, so all the numbers tie out and all of our capital projects are included as well as any new revenue. So with that, I know it's a lot, and I went pretty fast, but a lot of the stuff we're gonna go over again a little bit later. And with that, are we good to go ahead and get started? I know, it's very small.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those.
Thicker for the cuts.
And, yeah. We will turn to our main agenda. We left off, 14C, stormwater funds, and Director Carr, this is your third presentation, so the training wheels are off. We welcome you back up.
Thank you, Chair and Budget Committee. I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can here, so don't hesitate to stop me if there's some questions specifically that I'm not getting to. Stormwater fund. There is a planned rate increase for the ESU equivalent service unit to fund the storm. There were some projects identified to use some of that funding towards. I'm kind of pulling that back till I got an actual stormwater master plan in place and can identify whether that money is more appropriately used in other system deficiencies. So I'm kind of pushing back some of those bigger projects a year until I get the actual stormwater master plan and can have that technical guidance we need to identify those projects. In the actual spreadsheet breakdown, you will notice, again, I kept kind of the same from year to year coming out of the gate. One big one you'll see is professional services bumped up. We are getting a TMDL requirement from DEQ that we're having to comply with. That we have a consultant, Elizabeth Sagmiller. She used to work for Kaiser Salem. She's an expert in the field, in my opinion. She's helping us develop that program. We have to submit that to DEQ and get approval from them. We're way ahead of most cities due to Ash Creek Watershed doing all the tree restoration. So that gives us a big boost and it kind of gets DEQ off our back through this process because we've already been doing a lot of things that this TMDL will require.
TMDL.
Total maximum daily load.
You know that.
Some people say limit load, it can be used synonymously. The equipment purchases, the 36, that's the stormwater funds portion of vehicles, obviously. The $60,000 for system improvements, that is to fix, if you're not aware, we have a localized flooding issue in Cooper's View subdivision. I've looked at the plans. I really believe it's a simple fix that we might not need this. If the fix doesn't work, that has the money to really fix it if we need to. But I think there's a quick workaround that we can do to alleviate those flooding issues for those residents. It's not very common. This is the second time I've known it happen, but last year it got close to topping over curb in that subdivision. So we need to address that.
Really happy.
The city shops portion, obviously I talked about it last time, is the stormwater's participation in the storage shed for the vac truck. Other than that, everything else is still pretty straight across. The storm fund is the big funding mechanism for our leaf pickup program, which is also gives us a big leg up with DEQ through any process, because not every city has a leaf pickup program. And it really helps with our permitting through DEQ. Those are kind of the big ones. Storm fund's pretty small. I'll take any questions on the stormwater fund right now if you have them. If not, I can move on. Okay. Oh, do you have one? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure I've got the latest version, but I think I do. I'm seeing in the budget document and behind the tab of storm water, we talk about the FY 26 expenditure highlights. That talked about the undersized storm lines on Woodman Street and Main. And it seems like we've been working forever on getting a solution to that stadium stadium and church corner, I've been back, and I go back to last year's budget, budget presentation. And, many of the same things are located there. FY 26 expenditure highlights, that's from a year ago. And it's talking about the same thing, the 124. So anyway, I just need, and it sounds like you're sort of just getting your hands on it too, but it seems to be duplicated in both spots. And so my assumption is that it was not done last year, and it will be done this year, and we'll be planning for it.
I'm not sure it was not done last year. The reason the Whitman project was postponed is ODOT is coming through and doing all the ADA facilities through town, and that includes obviously Whitman as ODOT jurisdiction. So we can't go put catch basins and stuff in until they get all their ramps and we see how that water is gonna flow. And some of those stormwater systems are actually owned by ODOT, so we want to let them do the work if we could. The stadium drive is a big issue. It's been ongoing. It was never actually started. And I can't speak to why not, but that's the reason I push that off is I want that specifically addressed in our master plan, the guidance to improve that area, because it's not just stadium. There's a storm line that runs under his football field that goes up into Woo's campus that we have significant issues with also. And for the repair at Stadium Drive to actually work, we need to fix those facilities too, or it's just gonna keep doing the same thing no matter what we do at Stadium. So it's a more holistic approach to that whole area there that we've had historic issues with.
Yeah, that is a problem area with for whatever reason, one running off Cupid's Knoll and into the stadium and everything else. Well, just one of the things, and good, thank you for that. It would be helpful, and maybe this is Sean, and maybe this is your deal too, but it might be valuable on the current document to say this was previously funded, but for whatever reason, not completed. So it's rolled back forward the second time. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, but we're not, the untrained eye would say we're doing the same thing twice, and that's not the case. So just a tip.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And I think the project status report that we're gonna be working on will also help clarify. We can keep council and the budget committee updated on a regular basis about why things aren't moving forward. For example, ODOT doing the ramps or something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect reason, yeah.
I'll get that updated and get it to you.
So quick question, I don't see on the stormwater any reserves for future expenditures. I thought you said you had some future expenditures you needed to part of that for.
Yeah, so CIP down at the bottom is no, but if you look at top, our net working capital to start with is about $500,000, $456,000. So what is going to go in with the master plan on the back end of that master plan is we can look at what our fees are, because they will need to be adjusted based on whatever project list we develop out of those master plans. So there'll be some of that. And a lot of that will also, I'm pretty aggressive with seeking grants and things like that. I try to budget for the whole project and try to get grants for things like that to offset our commitment to those projects and roll that forward into another project. I'm not sure what that project list is going to look like, how much money we're talking about, anything like that yet. It's probably takes a year to get through that master plan process.
Yeah, back on the first page, stormwater utility fund. Perhaps I missed this with the discussions flying around, but talk about the rate increase and annual rates will need to be adequate to cover debt. And then it says additionally in fiscal year 25, 3%. Is that correct, or am I just confused here?
No, when it was adopted, there was an implementation over so many years. So this will be the last year of that agreed to increase over that duration over the 5 years. The debt servicing, I'm not entering into that this year because I need to make sure our master plan, and if we do enter the debt service, that we're going to address our most needed improvements.
And I actually think it was supposed to say increase was adopted. to help offset significant inflationary. So I can fix that typo.
Okay, that was my confusion. Thank you.
On the personal
Finish your mic,
services,
please.
Like,
on the personal services, part,
That's the red, sorry.
And again, there you go.
There you go.
Red is on.
okay, personal services, the proposed budget shows, 490,000. But there's a reduction in FTE from 3.5 down to 2.8. But the 490,000 represents about a 20% increase in personal services, so that doesn't seem.
So looking at the fringe benefits, that contributes to that. From last year, we we're at 132 with the percentage increase we're expecting in those fringe benefits, that pushed it up to 211. So that's roughly $80,000 right there alone.
Gonna be true with all of them. Especially
So
with the small
how much of that is insurance and that's just flabbergasting.
14% on the healthcare. Yeah, our healthcare costs went up 14%. And then this also includes, so our workers' comp is gonna increase. We budgeted 12%, but it could be up to 14% as well. And then we also have some increase for dental, that's 5%. So all those increases in our benefits continue to go up. Another thing that's included in benefits that might help clarify, so we have a pension obligation bond for our PERS.
I know.
Yeah, and so that's calculated in there as well.
Okay, well, it is what it is, but it just seems counterintuitive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On that same segment there, the personnel services, and I think this was asked, and maybe I just didn't fully comprehend the answer. There is a reduction in FTE. It's showing a drop from 3.4 to 2.8. Yet in the narrative, it says that we filled a vacant, 0.5 FTE utility position. Can you help me understand how that squares?
So the 0.5, we only have one employee that's fully, two employees fully committed. There's the half, I couldn't speak to that. I wasn't part of that process. What I did is I rebalanced the FTE distributions across funds to take the voting on the general fund. So that comes back to when guys work overtime. You know, if they're 1.0 in the stormwater, they work overtime in water, their overtime was getting charged to the stormwater fund. So that I redistributed those to more accurately account and accommodate that overtime, so we weren't just destroying one fund over the rest.
Thank you. I do remember that now that you say it again, and my eyes must have crossed late at night the other night. So thank you very much.
Any further questions?
Okay, the next one will be the street fund on page 79. We are still actively pursuing Safe Routes grant programs. That is a great project. They have, as part of ODOT's trying to cut costs, is move that to a 3-year interval, not a 2. That just came out a few weeks ago. But we'll develop some projects and seek some of that funding. We've applied for it every year. The only one we were successful with was the one, obviously, you see that goes from Church all the way down to Madrona. So we have our overlay programs. It is planned for Clay Ward. We actually got done last year. Obviously, you can see after City Hall and Monmouth Commons, that whole street was checkerboarded. We were able to pull that one off last year. So we go through, we've got a TSP that's up for adoption, and that's going to guide some of those expenditures. We're focusing on kind of the downtown core. So the next overlays you will see will probably be over on Knox or something like that. We try to work from Jackson to Clay. once the downtown core is quote unquote cleaned up, then we start moving out, looking at those defined pedestrian corridors where we get the most, and that's how we select which streets get overlaid. Going over the projects, this has stayed pretty even, except for the projects. Obviously, equipment is the vehicle portion for this fund. The $15,000, again, is for the back truck storage. And that Surface Transportation Act, that money is what we use for the overlays and upgrading ADA facilities. So that dollar amount can vary. Again, it's an estimate at this point, higher or lower. We wait for that monies to come in, and then we get the projects done since we have the money and we have good contractors. We actually have a very good concrete contractor who's willing to do ramps without an engineer's design, and he takes all the liability, which really saves us a lot of money. So those are the big, oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't here last meeting and maybe you answered this, but you know when the Gwynn Street project is coming through?
I'll get there.
Okay.
The reason I haven't addressed it yet is because the funding for that is across multiple funds. And I've got a summation here. I can go over that in more detail because the SDCs pays for a lot of that project.
Thank you.
I will tell you, I talked to the designer today and said it needs to be ready for us to go to bid in January so we can get it constructed next summer. So if he cannot meet that timeline, I will find a different engineer who can. So any questions on that before I jump down to SDCs? I know that's real quick. There's not a huge amount of projects out there, but that's also with our TSP identifies a ton of pedestrian improvement, bike paths, bike lanes on non-pressured streets like Jackson and some of those things. Once the TSP is adopted, then we can roll into prioritizing those projects.
That's okay.
David, sort of the same question that I had on the stormwater, and this is, behind the street tab. The FY 27 expenditure highlights appear to be the exact same ones that were the FY 26 expenditure highlights. Again, does that reflect non-completion or delay or what?
Yeah, that's, again, I don't have a great answer for you. I wasn't in the Public Works Department.
Yeah.
Those projects, the bike lane creation and the speed feedback signs are budgeted in the SDC fund. There was a request by the Transportation Commission for speed feedback signs. Well, they wanted them all at ODOT right away, and those are $20,000 a sign once you have to do it to ODOT standards. The ones you see on our roads are $13,000 a sign.
Yeah, I was impressed with the price that how you're budgeting. Well, again, that's perhaps a structural thing that ought to be addressed in terms of noting that they were funded previously and now they're going forward the next time.
Yeah, I'll clean that up and provide the update to Sean.
Thank you.
So I am a little confused because in the stormwater one, it said FY 26 expenditure highlights. And then in the street one, it says FY 27 expenditure highlights.
It should be 27 in the stormwater, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
It just gets 26, 27. I like to say 26, 27.
Yeah, and just to get it fiscal year, calendar year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. On the same topic of Scrivener's errors there, on page 80, it mentions FY 24 under item 2. And so I think we just need to go through and, check the dates. I don't have any problem with the broader figures, but I think we just update those dates.
Yeah, for sure. After this entire discussion, I've got plenty of notes to go back and just the little tweaks here and there to clean up those gaps.
Other questions? Seeing none?
Okay, I'm gonna move to the SDC funds. starting on page 109. The parks one, that Sean mentioned earlier, you'll see the system development went up to $775,000. That is for the inclusive play equipment at MRP. I will be able to get it built. I have a design in hand from a consultant that I think we're gonna pull that project off this year before, well, let's say 26, 27, before the next budget cycle. Which is just, you know, I don't get excited about things like that very often, but what's going on in MRP Park and providing these to the citizens of town, that one excites me. And I'll probably bring a presentation to council because it's an impressive play. You know, you can't cut corners when you do go those inclusive facilities. And that's really the big one from the Parks SDC. The Parks, oh, that's my full copy. I didn't have it. Sanitary sewer, page 110. That is $925,000 contributing to the Gwin project and the $250,000 for a new master plan for the sanitary sewer system. This is a good time for me to break into the Gwin to your question. I gave you the timelines, but that Gwin Street project is funded through urban renewal and the sewer, water, and street SDCs. So the grand total for that project is $3.9 million. I think I spoke to this last time with cost right now, who knows, but we're working to keep it within that. And there are some avenues to change some of that project to save money if needed. I'm not anticipating it at this point, but. Yeah, absolutely. There are opportunities through ODOT funding to help do some of that project because it does involve access to ODOT right of way. We have our water and sewer being bored underneath ODOT right of way. So there's some opportunities for us to explore with some potential funding for that project. And again, Jenna Berman, the person I talked to at ODOT, she's amazing in that process, finding ways to get you money if we're the ones doing the big lift to help pay for it.
So it runs between county roads, but it's not a county road.
Gwin Street? It does not connect to any county roads.
State roads.
Yeah, Highway 99 is a state, so the project goes from 99 east and connects to the stub street in Gwin from Olson Edition.
So it goes right next to Cultivate. I know, but at the other end, it goes all the way through to Talmadge.
Right.
Yes, yeah, the project is not doing anything past the point of connection. We're going from where the street was stubbed as part of that subdivision, bringing it to 99 to alleviate the traffic on Madrona, which can get problematic at times, and then going west of 99, doing a small overlay, and some of the sewer will help reroute some of the flows in Warren Street because they keep flowing north and they flow into undersized pipes and it causes problems in bigger events.
It's just a stop sign at 99.
Just a stop sign, yes. Our traffic loading would not dictate the need for a light.
Thank you.
Not yet. You know, those get analyzed and we can request ODOT does the study at any time to verify it.
Is there some projection about what kind of traffic might hit that street with this time?
There is in our TSP, I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head, but that is a project that was identified in the TSP as a critical line item to alleviate some of the traffic issues we're seeing, you know, on the south side of town coming into town.
I think the people on Madrona might be happier.
Until independence gets.
Yeah, so that's a concern, right? Our TSP addresses the city of Monmouth's infrastructure, you know, when the subdivisions, everything on the east side of Talmadge is Independence. That subdivision you're seeing is just the beginning. If you have not looked at the Southwest Independence Corridor plan, that entire area is planned all the way down to Stapleton. And they will be required during that to offset if they exceed any intersections. They are required to pay for the street light if it's needed or any offsite improvements.
Is that gonna move Madrona and Independence? Do you know?
No, you're talking about the street name carrying through? No, and our fire chief is not very happy about that. Right, because you don't want the alignment is together. You shouldn't be changing street names from one side to the other, but, that's what they did.
We get away with that.
I think it's the ultimate connection to where that road connects to the east, where it's planned all over to like Seventh Street where it comes down. So coming from Independence, their master plan is that's all one street. Madrona was obviously there before any of that, but
That road goes through 13th now.
yeah, so 13th is a big barrier too. The main issue there is the intersection capacity by San Antonio's Restaurant to Main Street. In order to accomplish those improvements to ODOT standard, you would have to demo the building, which is not in anybody's interest. But that'll have to be the developer, and I don't know how he'll tackle that, but 13th is a barrier.
I want to bring us back to the sewer SCC fund. Any more questions? Posed? Bring on, we'll move on to the next.
Okay, the next one is the water SDC on page 111. A lot of money in there. Obviously, the portion that contributes to the Gwynn Street project. We are initiating the design on the main water line that connects our 4th Street treatment facility to the boundary of the city. Currently, it's an old undersized pipe. I think it's 12-inch and it's old material. I think it's an AC line. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is based on the time it was constructed. We'll be upsizing that to a minimum of a 16-inch C900 plastic pipe, which will have the capacity for anything we could do at the well field or any of our water sources on that side of town to convey the water. And going with the C900 allows us to pump the water at a higher rate, obviously, than a concrete pipe or an AC pipe due to friction in the pipe. So it's been an upgrade that's been talked about for years. It just needs to get started before too much development and independence happens, and it's going to cost us a lot more money to make those improvements. So this is a great time. The previous subdivisions, we did upsize our line through those subdivisions at the south end of 7th Street as those were developed, just in pieces that got developed. We need to take it from that point to our point of entry at the city.
About the water SCC. Very much.
Stormwater SDC, page 112, $205,000. This one's easy. It's master plan. And not to say we don't have projects as part of our public works with the TV and the camera stuff we've got. We're initiating a much more aggressive maintenance program on our storm infrastructure, just like our sanitary sewer infrastructure. Transportation SDC, page 113. Those are just system development, ADA upgrades to piggyback off of our other overlay projects. I'm getting long-winded here and I'm trying to make this quick, but when we overlay streets, we cannot overlay them until the ADA facilities that connect to them are up to speed, up to standard. That's why you'll see, if you go out Monmouth Avenue with Woo's project, that's why they stopped where they did when they paved. If they went in the intersection, they would have to upgrade the entire intersection and repave streets to make the entire facility meet ADA and PRO-ACT requirements. So this is the money we use to do that ahead of time, so it doesn't slow down any of our overlays.
Questions about transportation SBC? Seeing none, for our final SDCs,
Is that fast enough?
are there any questions for Director McCarr about our public works? But proposed budgets?
I had a question, I should probably ask this earlier. Could you address the MyNet debt reserve and transfer to MyNet that's in the power and light fund?
That's power and light.
Power and light.
Oh, that's power.
What if they're-
Sorry.
Well, to answer your question, no, I can't speak to that.
I can guarantee I can't either.
On the right way, Rich.
Great. Thank you so much, Director Carr. It was a fantastic presentation and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Please, seriously, I think.
I move on to agenda item number 15, our advice fund, and invite up Director, Wade Carroll.
All right, you're going for applause, so.
Standing ovation.
Okay, before I get started, just a simple question. Does everybody experience lights come on when they flick the switch?
Yes.
Okay, questions? It's been a long day. Okay, so we had a good year at Power and Light. We finished our AMI conversion a year early. We installed over 2,200 new meters.
Which stands for A.
Oh, automated metering infrastructure. So we were updating our metering system that allows us much greater functionality with our metering system. We don't have to read any of them by hand. We have the ability to remote connect and disconnect meters from our office for almost all of them. Not some of the larger three-phase customers, we can't do that. It gives us much more data. We can now measure voltage all the way to every endpoint within the system, which is really valuable when we evaluate system needs. It increases reliability because we get alerts if things are failing. We know, we get indications that somebody's out of power often before they may even know that they're out of power. So big improvement there. We started one of our capital improvement projects that we were unable to finish this year. It's the last part of it's budgeted for this next year, if you approve the budget. But the southern end of Heffley, we have a primary line there that runs through some backyards, and we've installed the infrastructure out at the street. Having primary lines in people's backyards is a very bad idea because if there's ever an outage, we can't get the heavy equipment back there to get to those poles and wires. So this next summer with the rest of the capital money, we'll be wrecking out the existing system. And we did install the primary and secondary services out at the Riddle Road Apartments. So there's still one phase to go, which will probably be in this upcoming year. So just some of the good projects that we did. On the revenue side, for the new budget year, we are again looking for a 6% rate increase. This was identified that we did in our rate analysis and cost of service analysis that we unveiled last year. So that's in this budget. I did rework some of our capital projects, and when we cover the capital improvement plan, you'll see some of those. You know, this is my third year doing this since my arrival here. When I got here, the 5-year capital plan was already in place, and it's taken me a couple of years to really flesh out what projects need to be done, which ones don't, what the priorities are, and frankly, one of the ones that was in there, they're two actual projects, but they were separated. We wanted to combine them into one, and the amount that had been budgeted was grossly underestimated. So there was about $300,000 budgeted for it, and after we spec'd out the job, it was going to be at 1.5 million. So we've decided to push that out. It's still a good system, but it's just something that will need to happen eventually. On the another expenditure highlight this year, we're asking for some money to put some security cameras on our facilities to increase security, as well as upgrade our SCADA system. So on the FTE side, we have a change this year, and I will like to point out a typo that I just found while I was sitting over here. Under the 24-25 year, the general foreman that has zeros there, that should be 1. That's just a typo. I'm not certain how that got through, but we'll get that updated for the final print. You can see in this year's proposed budget, we've cut back on the number of linemen, and we're adding a engineering and operations superintendent. Another thing I've done since I've been here is really try to figure out what the needs of our staffing is. And one of the things that we're really missing on is someone who has the expertise to live in our system and look at it on a continuous basis and look at the data that we're getting so that we have more informed decisions. Not to mention, we spend a great deal of money, $40,000 a year for an engineering firm as a consultant to design our projects for us. And my hope is to get an engineering operations person in here who is an engineer. We did post, we did get some applicants who meet the qualifications. So not only will we have somebody who's here working directly for us, but it'll save us on the side for doing the consulting work. Also, this person will be able to implement a full GIS system for the entire city. So right now, Public Works, MPL, and buildings mapping systems are not tied together. This person will be able to create our GIS. So we'll have one mapping system. Everything will overlay each other. So we'll have one master record that the entire city can use. It'll be upkept and it will really improve our ability to look at projects, look at our equipment that we got in the ground and overhead and things like that. So that's the reason for that change. Okay. On page 87 now, just going through some of the highlights of the budget. On the revenue side there for all of the different rate classes, for budgetary reasons, we increased those basically by 6% for the residential, general purpose and small commercial and all the other ones there. In the past, we've done, if we had a 6% rate increase, we just raised everybody's rates by 6%. The problem with that is, as our cost of service analysis showed, some of our rate classes were out of whack. Some customers weren't being charged enough, some were being charged too much. So when we come back for the actual budget approval at the council level and the resolution for the rates, I'll be presenting a few different options the council can look at to make those adjustments so we can start to get people adequately billed and properly. There's not a whole lot of changes on the revenue side. I did increase our pole contacts a little bit. You can see we brought in $9,000 this year. I budgeted $14,000 last year because I was hoping to get a new pole attachment agreement completed. It did not happen. To give you an idea, our pole attachments and what those are is every time a communication company or somebody attaches a line to one of our poles, they have to pay a fee for that. Right now, depending on the agreement, we're either charging $2.50 or $4. Most utilities are charging well north of $15. So my goal is to get that, now that Rochelle's here, our staff is settling in, get a new agreement drafted, get it out, get it signed so that we can start collecting the proper amount for those attachments. They're important because not only do they, every hole we bore through a pole is a weak spot now for that pole. And so, and it adds weight, it adds stress, things like that. So you can see down here in the personnel services, it's jumped up. I'm assuming that's because of our allocations, the way we're allocating, right?
And yeah,
Yeah.
and also just benefits.
Yeah, the benefits, I didn't think I needed everybody's had that. Okay. On the expenditure side, professional services, that you can look back to our history, that really jumps around. Again, a lot of that is depending on how much engineering consulting work we need, how much substation contracting we need to get somebody in to do testing in our substations. That's where we pay for our tree trimming, which we did not do this last year. We did not bring an outside tree trimmer in because we had been so aggressive the few years before. Well, it's time to bring them back in this year. It's where we pay for a lot of our, our safety program and things like that. But the dollars there shouldn't be too outrageous. Professional development, last year I budgeted 30,000. We were only estimated to use 18,000. That can kind of be hard to guess because sometimes really good training opportunities come up and we want to have the money to budget for them. And we have people who are available to go, but sometimes we don't. So it's just kind of a number that I put there. And it's nice if we can send people for this, but sometimes it's just we're not able to.
So just arbitrary, basically.
Well, if you look back at how much we spent over the last few years, 25,000, 21, this was a down year. We've been short on staff and there just wasn't some good opportunities and timing wise. So this last year was the anomaly. News and publications, I know that was, good, moving on. I did my best with the 6% rate increase that we have. I did my best to keep this budget as flat as I could. You can see there the purchase power and power transmission. Those are our BPA bills. That's the largest chunk of my budget. That's what we pay for the power we purchase, and the transmission is what we pay to get there. And that was one of our biggest increases this year. Inventory purchases, you can see that's kind of jumped around. We've been about $250,000 this year. It was only 150. Those costs are related to work that we do that's more maintenance. So if we find a rotten pole and we switch it out. But once we got news of some financial information coming out of Bonneville with some of the regional issues, and we knew the 6% was coming up, I kind of pulled back on some of that maintenance that just didn't have to get done. And we did a lot of other things. You can, back under the yearly accomplishments, I put in there that we've updated the system component tagging for over 30% of our distribution system. That's really important because every point of the system has a tag on it, and it lets the crews know what it is, where the power is coming from, what phase it is, and all that. And that hadn't been updated in a long time. So it's still really valuable maintenance that needed to be done, but it was very inexpensive maintenance. So that's kind of one of the reasons why that number was so low, where we're projected to end up this year. Down through here. You'll see a big, under miscellaneous, this was kind of an odd thing. You can see I budgeted $4,000 last year because it's a very seldom used budget line. But we're estimating to finish around $28,000. That was due to a project that had been started, I want to say 4 years ago. The developer paid for their half of their project. We went out and did some of the work, and then the project stalled, and then they canceled it this year completely. So we had to give them a refund of money that they had paid us that we never ended up doing any work for, and that it hit that budget line item. So it's just kind of one of those things. Capital improvement plan, down here in the capital expenditures under system improvements. This last year we budgeted for 990,000. We're estimated to come in at about 550. You can see I'm asking again for 845. That's really dependent upon customer work. You know, we get an idea of what projects and developments are coming, so we have to plan for them and budget for them. And then if they don't happen, we don't spend that money. But that money really is offset also in the revenue side under aid to construction. So if we're banking on a bunch of money for those projects and when they don't happen, we don't get those funds, but at the same time, we also don't spend it out of the capital funds. So those just kind of even themselves out. Oh, yeah. Under the utility assistance, we've historically budgeted $10,000. It gets used every year. With the rate increases that we've had, thought it was a good idea to increase that to 20,000, just to help out some more people best we could.
And these funds are transferred to Polk County FCO and they administer those funds. So,
Yeah.
so make sure you're aware of that.
And that's one of the things, to answer your question about the MyNet transfer, that is, if you're asking what I think you're asking, that's the money that we're anticipating getting from them for the money that we loaned them when MyNet was stood up.
Well, we're expecting to get that money in?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, we have to budget,
There's an expenditure, that's why.
yeah, we have to budget for it in case we don't.
So that's an expenditure, so why is that listed as an expenditure then? I don't understand.
Thank you for the question. So this is kind of a complicated setup, how MyNet is set up. And actually, I'll just kind of dig into that, and then we can go back to Power and Light if we need to. So when MyNet was first being set up to pay for the infrastructure, City of Independence and the City of Monmouth helped with those costs. They did take out some debt service, and we pay the debt service up front, and then they reimburse us for that. In case they're not able to reimburse us for some odd reason, we have that in reserves to cover. We haven't had to use that. MyNet has been paying us. So there hasn't been a need to use those reserves. So they just roll back up into our working capital or beginning fund balance. But we budget that just in case some odd reason. Rochelle has had me now a member of the board, and we just met and went over their budget. They're in a very secure cash flow situation and don't anticipate any future issues with paying that debt. So, but again, just to be conservative and make sure we have that authority, we do budget that. But we would definitely let council know that they weren't able to make a payment and we were gonna have to pay that.
Well, I see it was budgeted last year as well, right? Same amount, but I don't see it on the previous years. Why was it not done on the previous one?
Yeah, so what happens is when, actually looking at the previous years for the 23-24 actuals, when I look at reserve for future expenditures, that one actually should have been zeroed out too. So when we don't spend those, they zero out and basically goes away because they are reserves. And so in this case, the 200,000 for this year, we're not gonna have to spend that, so that zeroes out. And that's why when you look at the actuals for, it's zero.
Second question, the equipment purchase is 268,000. Was that for just one truck or what was that?
Yeah, those expenditures are actually in the CIP. It is not just for fleet for his vehicles, but it's for other projects that he has. It was some line installation and.
So it's 250,000 for the replacement of our service truck.
Oh.
And $18,000 for a device that allows us to remotely rack in and out our circuit breakers in our substations.
Yeah.
The substation that we built, this is not a preferred method that most substations are built to, but it's less expensive to have these kinds of circuit breakers. But they can be inherently dangerous to be inside the control building while we rack them in and out. So this is a device that we hook to it. We can stand outside the building while this thing pushes it in and locks it in place. And it's all for safety purposes.
It's on page 32 of the CIP tab.
Getting back to the MyNet, I understand that they have cash flow sufficient to pay their debt service this year. In prior years, going back 20 years or maybe more, Monmouth and Independence fronted them the money, and that remains a debt, a receivable on the balance sheet for Monmouth and I presume Independence.
Mhm.
Is MyNet paying any of that receivable?
Yes,
Yes.
they are.
They're paying down the debt that we have formerly fronted.
Yes, correct. So plus interest, yeah.
Okay, the debt service runs out, the bonds run out another 20 years, give or take, or is it 40? I can't remember which.
I would have to double check. There's a debt service tab in your binder, and we can go into that a little bit more when we start talking about the MyNet fund.
Further questions from line power for director care.
Thank you, Chair. I just was wondering if you could speak to number 6, the 20,000 budget for renewable energy system incentives.
Yeah, that's that money and it's put into the BPA Conservation Efficiency Program. And those numbers that we have in there, the 80,000, I believe, is actually the amount of budget that we are able to reclaim from Bonneville, but we never get anywhere close to that. Plus, we get 20% of every dollar that we claim, and that really helps offset some of that $20,000, but that's where that's at.
Okay, great, thank you.
Technical question regarding the automatic reading of the thing. That data travels down our existing power lines, is that right?
It used to, that's the system we used to have that is no longer supported, which thus, this now is all done through RF.
Each meter has its own IP address, is that it?
That I'm not specifically sure if it's IP addressable, but it's an RF mesh, so the signals jump from meter to meter to meter till they get to a router, and then they go back to the collectors.
Wait, question on the, you just referenced the service truck. The notation here is that will not be delivered for another 24 to 30 months. 2 years. How are we going to account for that? And what year is that going to be attributed to, and how are we going to track that?
It was my understanding that the money would be budgeted. If we were unable to spend it, we would have to set it aside.
Yeah.
And then just hold on to it in a reserve until the vehicle, we don't know when the vehicles will get ready. Sometimes people get them in 18 months. Sometimes people get them in 30 months, 36 months. It just depends on supply and demand. But that was the goal.
And you have the maximum guaranteed price on that?
Not yet. We haven't gone out to bid, but I've been talking to peers at other utilities about what they've been seeing in the type of vehicle. Last year, the budget was 175. I had to increase it to 250 this year because of that.
Yeah, okay, that'll be important. You know, a lot of notation on that.
Yes.
And then just to, and it is related to Collins Light, albeit in reference to Minnet. The revenue that comes in from, albeit not a lot, but the revenue that comes in from Minnet and we're paying back to these loans that Tom was talking about, where does that reflect?
Debt service.
In debt service, yeah, it's a separate, actually fund.
In a different tab?
Yeah,
Yes.
correct.
And
Page 118.
and that dedicated to
Well, so
any money that is collected.
any money that's collected goes, so the fund, money goes out of the debt service fund to pay for the debt service and interest associated with the Minnet. And then when they pay us, it goes in as a revenue stream into our debt service to cover that expense that's gone out. So it doesn't go into Power and Light. It goes into the debt service fund to offset our expenditure.
Make the loan payments.
Yeah.
So where will we see that for this year? I think what
On page 118 is the debt service.
Yeah, so if you start, it gets really confusing because.
Page 120.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
then-
I'll stop you for, on Power Line, and I
Yeah,
don't want
let's finish.
to, there is a Minnet fund agenda item. So I want to go on Director Carey and go to call our Minnet questions. Are there any final questions about Power Line for us, for Director Carey? And then we will jump to the Minnet fund next. No more questions about Power Line.
You're all set?
Questions?
Flip the switch, the power comes on.
there you go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director Carey. We appreciate your time. Great. Well, we will now go to agenda item 16B, the Minnet Fund. And talk Minnet Fund and a little bit about the debt service responsibility too. And hopefully, collect some of that confusion.
Yeah, so in looking at, so I copied what has previously been in budget documents, and maybe I need to provide a little more detail, but what happens is we have a debt service fund and we budget for one of the budgets in it, so is on 122, which is all the debt service associated with MyNet. And so most of it is not paid off until 2024. But all the revenue that is received from MyNet to pay the current debt service is received in the debt service fund, and payments on debt service goes out of the debt service fund. And so it's just an in and an out. If they do not make the payment, that's when you start seeing it coming out of Power and Light. That's where it would come out of, and you'd see the expenditure in there. Yeah.
So when they pay us, as I recall right now, the promissory note they gave us, they start paying just $10. And eventually they'll start to pay us not only the current debt payment, but also they'll start paying back the money that we covered for them historically.
They are.
Years they've done.
Yeah, 3 years.
They've already 3 years in?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a while. I've lost track of where we are.
I know, yep.
I haven't seen the
We're
promissory note
getting
for a
our
while.
money.
So,
Getting our money.
so that piece of their payment that goes to current debt, and then there's a piece that includes some interest that goes to pay back past debt. Where does that money live? My guess is it goes back into the Power and Light Reserve, which is where it came from in the first place. But I could be mistaken.
No, my understanding is it's going into the debt service to pay that debt service.
Okay.
Now, so I don't understand, you're saying the money that's supposed to go back to Power and Light doesn't go back to the Power and Light? I'm a little fuzzy here.
Well, I don't know exactly how it was set up years ago, but how we're budgeting it now, that's what's happening, is it's going into the debt service.
We could pay off the debt sooner.
But won't pay off Power and Light.
Unless they keep paying us after the end of the. It would. Right. We get it all back eventually, Rich. Yeah, man.
I have a question. So if that money that originally came out of the Power and Light Fund, which was funded by utility payments by you and me and my next door, everybody. And paying out that money to cover MyNet could have, maybe it did, but it certainly could have affected the rates. So paying that money back could also, if it went back into the Power and Light, could also affect the rates, could have a favorable effect on the rates. I don't understand why that money doesn't go back to its original source so that it can offset any rate changes or help to cushion any future rate changes.
So I would have to look into this a little bit more, because all the money that we are currently receiving from MyNet is offsetting existing debt payments that are being made. It's not going back into Power and Light.
That's what's happening. I'm saying, I think you should look at the logic of that, because I think the logic is flawed.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we're paying off other people first, right?
No.
Is that it?
There's two debts that we're dealing with MyNet on. One is the original. And because of their success, they are paying us equal to, or even in some cases probably more than what the debt service is. Those are paid twice a year. And they are, I think in the last several years, they've been meeting all of those obligations. The second part of that is that which is owed to Power and Light. Power and Light had a large fund balance. And it might even been, Tom, at the time when we were reducing the power, the rate, that it was a great time for Monmouth Power Line, as it is now. And so that was a fund that we were able to loan the money and pay that debt that MyNet could not pay at that time. And there was
So we covered the shortfall.
yeah, I mean, if it was a $900,000 bill, they could pay us $600,000, we paid $300,000 on a power line. And all that was attributed. Now, I've been on the board for a while, but there was some sort of consolidation of a number of those, and so that is, and to Rich's point, that is money that should be there to replenish MyNet or Power Line's reserves. Now, when that occurs, might have to do with the confidence and, of when, to make sure they're gonna be able to continue to do what they're doing. But we can't lose track of the fact that that is money that was paid for, or was provided out of Power and Light, paid for by ratepayers, to your point, Tom. And we just can't lose that history. And it's somewhere in there, but that can't be lost.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Again, I'm on week 4. So I don't know. But I will definitely look into that and send out an email to the budget committee so you all know how this is working. I'm sure that there is some plan where Power and Light gets some revenue back to recoup those costs. I don't know what those are. I just know what I've been looking at the last couple of years and how the fund has worked, the debt service fund, and how we're paying things back. So I will definitely look into that though and get back to the budget committee with that answer.
Thank you. Remembering from prior years, there are promissory notes that were filled out. So it is documented in some of the prior budgets, and I recognize no one new here, just trying to help point in the right direction. I do believe that it is proper that we are paying back the debt service first. That is the debt that was first incurred, right? So thank you.
And as Sean mentioned, we have MyNet budget meetings starting, coming up. I'm on that budget committee as well. And so we will see how much they are paying, right? Their scheduled payments and line it out, and she can match up where those have been. So it'll be clear when we get there. She can explain.
Further questions, clarification?
It's clear as mud.
We will start back at the top and 16A grants fund. As soon as we finish 16, all in all with subpoints, we will do a 10-minute break.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We should be able to move through these pretty quickly, as I think, we've already covered MyNet kind of. So I did provide a new grant fund sheet for your budget binder. The grant fund is used to track significant grants or donations that are received and expenditures that are offset by those grants in either the current or future fiscal years. For example, the senior center, as Barbara presented, they received a grant, and that was included in this grant document, and it's $35,000. Additionally, Suzanne talked about a grant for the community block grant, and $375,000 was included in this. And then there's another 1.2 million. So those are the types of grants that we put in this fund to track. And so they don't get commingled and lost within our other funds, specifically general fund. Any questions on that one?
The quick clarification, the document says the 35,000 for the senior center, which is for a driver, it was for community members participating in the senior center activities. Actually, what Barbara said at our last advisory board meeting, if a member of the senior center, free membership, says I need a ride to Salem for that's what this is for, or a ride.
Dial-A-Ride. Okay.
It's not just activities, it is getting seniors around our neck of the woods. You know, West Valley has a bus which used to be for taking people to Salem Health appointments, and they are now expanding that to take people to any medical appointment. So we have for seniors an additional resource there in these going to. We're starting to have available transportation for transportation-less seniors in the community, which.
And I'll make sure, so how our GL codes are lined up, there was specific titles. And so that was just a placeholder. I think that's an excellent point. I'll update that title.
Yeah.
So that it reflects exactly what that grant's for. Yeah.
Any questions about the grant fund? Okay, and I'm gonna move on to 16B here.
Yeah, my network's gonna be. I'm gonna let Rochelle speak to this one because I know very little about this.
Okay, so the transit fund, this is basically the MI trolley, the Monmouth Independence trolley. To go back, this service has been completely funded by grant funds. It started off with a $3 million appropriation through Rep. Evans, like COVID dollars. That's what purchased the original 3 trolleys and provided the service and all of the stuff to get it going. You'll see this year that we had budgeted 2.25 for the 25-26. We based that off of 1.5 million from state funding through Rep. Evans, and then another 750,000 through the STIF funding. We acquired the STIF funding last year, and that's through the biennium, so that's 750,000 that we have. And then we were able to get 1.75 from Rep. Evans through the state budget this year. $1 million of that for operations and 750,000 for equipment. So some of those funds are being used this year, and then they're going to roll over into next year. So you can see with the proposed for 26-27, the net working capital is at 1.4 million. That's a lot of those funds that we're going to be using. We found out last week, Carter Craig and Sean from Independence presented to the Salem Area Mass Transit District, and we're able to get another 83,000 in 5310 funding, which is federal funding. So we have that coming in, we know for sure, but moving forward, the big thing is how are we going to fund the trolley? So currently, and hopefully on Tuesday, I'm going to be bringing an intergovernmental agreement to the City Council that includes the City of Independence, us, and Western Oregon University. That will then establish the Monmouth Independence Advisory Commission. That is going to be a board that is set up between both cities and including a representation from Western Oregon University and community members. And that group, their main goal is to set up a revenue plan. How are we going to continue to fund it? What kind of fundraising is going to need to happen to be able to generate that kind of funding? Because you're looking at over $1 million a year. Another thing that's going on right now is because we do receive federal funding, it's the 5310 funding is federal funds. They require that an RFP is done for your operational services. And so the city did that in January. The only response we got was Chariots, who is our current operator of the trolleys. And they brought that back with a 39% increase in operations. So in speaking with the city manager, Kenna West, and our mayors, what I'd like to do is take a few months to do a feasibility study to look at bringing operations in-house. The reason in the past that operations were just immediately outsourced is because we did not have the ability to maintain any of the trolleys. Polk County Fire just recently hired a full-time mechanic, and they are looking for additional work. And so, in speaking with the chief, he thinks it's totally possible that they could be able to do the maintenance on our trolleys, and they're right next door to where we hold the trolleys at Monmouth, Public Works. So in that, we let Chariots know that we were not gonna award the operation. We currently have a contract that goes to the end of June. They came back and offered us a 6-month extension with a 5% increase on last year on our current operations, which seemed a lot more reasonable than 39% increase. So we're looking at finalizing that piece of it, being able to do the feasibility study to determine if we can operate it for less internally. The drivers are that's gonna be an issue, is trying to find drivers and how that's gonna work. And so maybe we bring back maintenance and we do that in-house, but we continue to do the driving through Chariots, but taking a look at what those dollars look like and make sure that we're running it as efficiently as possible. So that's what we're looking at doing over the next 2 to 3 months. Hopefully we can get that completed in that time. So, do you have any questions on the transit fund?
Somebody earlier, in one of the earlier session mentioned the total number of rides per year or something. Do you remember what that figure was?
I believe this last, it was 124,000. 124,000 this past year, and we go April to April because it started in April. The first year it was, I want to say 110,000. So we're averaging like 10 to 11,000 riders a month. Rides a month. It's an incredibly successful service.
You identified certain groups in that money.
Sorry, can you use the mic?
Students is a group in there.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
The students would be a group in that number.
Correct.
And do we know what percentage that number of students would represent?
No, we do not have it itemized that way. We just have a total rider as they come on there. They're counted as they come on. But in the advisory committee, we are going to have representation from the school district and from students. We've included that in there as well. And so, because it's a major thing. There's a lot of kids now that can do after school sports because they now ride the trolley home after school. You know, it's just a really successful thing to have. Plus, a lot of people do that.
When I was in high school, I ran track. And the activity bus dropped me off 1.5 miles from my house.
Oh, jeez.
Anymore.
The activity bus took you 1.5 miles.
So after, running track, and it would be dark, this started in February. And stuff, so I would walk home. Maybe there'd be somebody to walk with me. Maybe there wouldn't be. But I won't go into the story about I got into all kinds of trouble in the Panther Club for never mind.
There is such thing as activity buses anymore. You don't get on the bus at 3 o'clock, you don't get ride.
So 100,000, if you charge $1 a ride, and assuming that all of the students that now ride it would pay $1 per ride, that's 100,000. So I will wish your fundraising committee well. But I would be very reluctant to be in favor of any kind of additional tax to fund the trolley service. Just speaking as John keeps said.
There's none proposed.
There's none proposed. And I know that the goal was to keep it at a zero cost, so for accessibility for people to use. And so that's what the advisory committee is gonna have to look at, and how can we raise those funds, but hopefully we can do it. We can figure it out.
Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Questions? Okay. Okay, now we move on to 16E.
How about, can we D?
Yeah.
Okay. So the special capital reserve fund, nothing is budgeted for this current fiscal year, and actually nothing has been budgeted. The fund was originally established when the old fire station was sold, and proceeds were deposited into it along with transfers for the city project. Now that the city hall project is complete, in fiscal year, staff will present a resolution to city council recommending that we close that fund. So that's all that is. And the gas revolving fund, we've talked quite a bit about this already in the last couple sessions. Again, this fund is where we budget to sell gas to the fire district and for the trolley and our city vehicles. And we've already talked about with the rising gas prices, is, you know, what's going to happen with this fund. We're currently watching it. I'm going to say that for this current fiscal year, there is going to be a supplemental budget needed to cover. We estimate that we're going to be about 26,000 over budget. And a significant portion is just happening in this last quarter with increases. So we'll continue to watch this as we enter into the new fiscal year. And we may be back for a supplemental or further discussion with the council on how to proceed with. But that's it for the gas revolving fund. Any questions on that?
Are you adjusting the price that you pay the different agents or the different agencies pay as the prices go? And at what point did you change what you're charging the police department, the mine, I think they're on that, fire department.
Fire department.
And at what point do you increase the revenue to compensate for the increased expense?
Well, so the margin is actually set by council. I'm assuming that we charge what it costs us for a gallon of gas, although we buy it in bulk. And then there's a margin. I would have to look at what the margin of revenue is on that.
So that increased cost should be passed on to the.
Yeah. So they pay the actual cost and then there's a margin where we earn revenue for overhead and stuff like that.
We're good for 4 weeks.
Right. I know, there's nothing else. Okay, so we'll go into
Service.
yeah, debt service, my favorite topic, I think. So we have the limited tax pension obligation, and this was created in 2005 with several cities pooling resources to take out debt and lessen the PERS rate costs. The debt service payment for the city in fiscal year 27 will be $296,017. The total debt service will be paid off in 2028. The debt service is paid by operating funds in funds that pay salaries and wages, and that is budgeted in the benefits line item. PERS in the budget remains stable for fiscal year 27. However, in fiscal year 28, PERS is expected to come out with a new rate increase.
And it's expected to be shocking.
Yeah, extreme. Yeah, it could be up to 60%. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, during fiscal year 27, staff will be working with those other cities that are participating in this pool to see if they're gonna participate in this debt service option, and we'll be coming back to council and the budget committee to have further conversations. But yeah, this is actually one of our highest bills, I guess, when you look at our benefits. Yes, medical keeps going up, but PERS is significant. So that is the pension obligation debt service. Any questions there?
Yes. The pension obligation bonds and everything else in the OPSER were intended to stop the rise in pension costs for public employers. Has PERS had the common decency to explain to you why that isn't occurring?
I know why it's occurring, but, I want to be PC about this. So PERS is actually funded through investments and determining, how they determine which investment pools to invest in, decides their rate of return. So their returns have not been what they were hoping. I'll leave it at that.
That's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just, for example, when the stock market crashed in 2008, 2009, PERS portfolio crashed. So actually, most of us got negative returns where we were paying more to pay off these bonds than we were getting in earnings from the investments. It set our entire unfunded actuarial liability back like 8 years in 1 year. So climbing back out of that was difficult. It is literally about the earnings and about the amount employers are paying. There's a lot of great information out there if you want to learn about PERS unfunded actuarial liability. But those of us who took out these bonds, and if you took them out correctly, it really has offset those rates. But when these bonds expire, if we cannot collectively as public employers get good rates for new bonds, then we don't have anything offsetting those costs, and they are expected to skyrocket. And right now, the bond market is correct. And there is absolutely no way that any of us could look right now if we had to go out and get a pension obligation bond and assume that the earnings over the next 20 years would ever make up the debt service. It's very scary.
Okay, that is a generalized answer, but the concept for the third tier was that my understanding is it's a defined contribution plan, not a defined benefit plan. The defined benefit plan is what has thrown everything into a cocked hat.
That's correct.
So as the workforce ages out and more people go into the defined contribution plan, the debt service or the cost to employers should remain fairly stable. And I would hope PERS would address that at some point, because Monmouth isn't the only entity that's going to deal with that. There are a great many others.
I'll be glad to tell you more about that, because that unfunded actuarial liability, like you said, the curve will start going down. It absolutely will when all those tier 1 people die off. So our rates are. You know, I wish you a long and healthy lifetime, Gary. The rate projections are expected. I mean, this spike in a year is because of these PERS bonds that have been contributing and buying down our rates are going away. Otherwise, there are districts that haven't had those bonds and their rates have been climbing. Ours haven't been climbing as much, but in a few years, the curve is supposed to start back down. It's just how any public employer is going to survive before that. So it's not about, but you're right, the unfunded actuarial liability is mostly due to tier 1 folks. And it's not that PERS hasn't tried to do something about it. It's not that the legislature hasn't tried to do something. There was a huge bill that would have saved millions of dollars for public employers, and the courts found it, that said it was illegal. There was no way to do it because it changed benefits for people who were already retired. That is the only way to get the cost out of the system, and the courts overruled it. So in the last 10 years, they've chipped away at the margins, but you cannot get rid of that huge liability.
The effect of that is going to be, either entities like Monmouth have to find additional funding sources to maintain current level services or increases as population grows, the police, of course, will grow and so forth. Or, you're going to have to cut services at some point.
Wait till you see school districts just have to cut down. Counties, everybody.
Tier one, for serious, you have survivor benefits.
Yes.
They have defined benefits. Their retirements grow at a defined amount per year. So they get a defined benefit. And then they created a second tier who have defined contributions. A certain percent of our salary goes in, but you get back whatever the market bears.
No promises about what comes out.
Thank you.
I'm on clock for 6 years, and I'm 6, okay, and I'm the first retiree. And I will continue to see payments as a tier one retiree until the day I die. My spouse taught at Western for 36 years. She's got partially tier one, partially tier two. She will continue to see those tier one benefits. Okay, it's not going away anytime soon. And the money's got to come from somewhere to pay those benefits. One of the big things was folks who had the nerve to put money into a variable account in their defined, okay? And so they're getting back even more.
Depending on how well the market.
Right, yeah, no, exactly. In general, over the course of a career, it has been like that, so, yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
The long-term effect is that the fringe benefits are going to
Yes.
probably adversely affect long-term planning for
Oh, yeah.
everybody, and
Yep.
that's my point, so I'll shut it
All
down.
right.
Any further comments on, the PERS or general obligation, debt service, Sean?
So the general obligation I haven't gone over yet. So the general obligation bond debts are associated with the police department and construction of City Hall. The total debt service is $400,226. And then there's interest on top of that will be paid in fiscal year 27. And that's really, that's pretty straightforward. So if there's any questions on that.
Any more questions on that service? We will take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 8:16. Hello, thank you, everybody. Okay. We have, I think, one more presentation or overview, agenda item number 17. Overview, 2027, 2031. Oh my gosh. Capital improvement plan. And then we'll pass it back to our city staff.
Thank you, Chair. So the city's capital improvement program document is meant to be revised and updated each year. After each completed year, a new year is added. So I'm focusing on fiscal years. So generally, a plan is approved for every fiscal year. And so I want to keep it kind of consistent with the fiscal years. Only money budgeted in the annual budget is approved for spending for items contained in the CIP. The total CIP budget for the next 5 years is $51,408,200. For the upcoming fiscal year, though, this includes several projects that have been previously discussed, and the more detailed items are in your CIP document. And most items are funded. However, there are a couple of projects that were identified for next fiscal year that are not funded, and we talked about those in the last couple budget committee meetings. So the roof for the library is not funded, but it is included as a backup document for information, and then also some kitchen upgrades to the senior center. That information is included in the CIP, but that has not been funded as well. Also, within the general fund line item within the CIP, the amount may be a little misleading. Some of these items, for example, are parks related and may be paid with park SDCs rather than general fund dollars. Additionally, there are several projects that include things like vehicle replacement for the police department, body worn cameras. Those are all budgeted, and the chief did talk about those in his presentation. And there's additional information, detailed information in the CIP document itself. So other projects associated with sewer, water, street, and stormwater may be funded through SDCs, specific operating funds, grants, and also urban renewal funding. These projects include, like we talked about, Gwen Street, various line replacements for like stormwater and sewer and master plans. Power and light, we discussed just briefly today about their capital improvement plans, and they're in this document as well. And so with that, I mean, there's not a lot of other information to provide for this next fiscal year for the CIP. The projects have been presented throughout the department presentations, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions related here? Okay.
Tom had his red light on, right? That's something to fix. I don't have that document. I didn't get it. I didn't come down today and get it. So that's okay. I don't really need it. It's a general question. What level of confidence do we have that we have the bandwidth to be able to do this $51 million worth of projects this next year?
Well, the $51 million worth of projects, so the CIP should be in the very back. Oh, I may have emailed it to you because, okay, so.
Page 2. That's a good summary.
10 million.
Versus 10.
10 million.
It's 10 this year. That includes vehicles, one time purchase.
10 million.
Yeah, so I can provide you with my copy. I had to give him his binder when he,
Pam has it for you.
Yeah. So the 51 million is over the 5-year period. It's not this current fiscal year. This current fiscal year, it's approximately 10 million. That is a combination of vehicle replacements, and then we have also our body worn cameras, line replacement like we talked about, but it's really only 10 million.
Well, again, and then are any of these rolled over from prior year?
I would have to defer to our department heads, but I believe most of them are.
Most of them are rolled over from a prior year. Okay, that's fine. I just, and I don't, I'll look here to see what that's made of. Thank you.
Summer, we should have done last
Any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. And, building on Councilor Carey's comments, I think there is a general interest in some in this body to understand when we're looking at the rollovers from prior year or not. Some of these projects are designed to roll over from prior year, right? In fact, many of them are. I think there's a transparency measure that, there's a desire for to understand, well, what was planned for year A that ends up not happening in year A and moved to year B, and so on and so forth. And so there's year to year tracking that we just don't have a lot of visibility in to.
And we don't have it in here, but
Yeah.
we developed that last year
Yeah.
that shows that.
And so there's just, I think, and I share this desire of Mr. Carey's to have a better view of that. So not needed in this, but very interested in the future. Thank you.
Janet, finally got it done.
Yeah.
Let's see any further questions? We're gonna move on to number 16, deliberations on the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget. Staff want to get any final comment?
No, I don't think we have any final comments. Thank you, Chair.
Great, I will soon open it up to members. Final questions or comments about proposed budgets we have here. I just want to thank city staff for all the work they have put in here, our department heads, our new department head who presented before our, I don't even know what to call us. But this showdown. So, I'll come up with a better term for next week.
Hey, corral here.
Thank you to our department heads, and thank you to all the city employees for all they do. Great. Anybody of the committee wishing to be recognized to comment on our proposed budget? Nurse Coombs?
I would start out with a motion for purposes of discussion. I would move to approve the fiscal year 26-27 budget, and typically we would do the total, which I believe is the 51,927 tiny 660. And in the total amount of 51,927,660 dollars.
I'll second that.
The question is the CIP part of that budget in the vote?
Yes, it is. If we look at the blurry page 19 that we got tonight, you'll see that capital project funds is listed in there too.
No, so we'll take two votes. So 19 and 20, you'll see approval of the budget and you'll see approval of capital improvement.
Oh, separate. Okay, separate.
So
Then
that motion-
dollar amount might not be right. I don't
That
know.
motion be sufficient or should I pass back?
I would add the property tax piece of it.
Mayor, if I could pass you this and if you could restate your motion.
Sure. Is it over here too? The motion? Oh. I was gonna do that, but I couldn't find a motion. I was looking through my email. I If I could restate the motion,
Please.
I would like to amend my motion to read a motion, to approve the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget as amended in the amount of $51,927,660, including levying the permanent tax rate of $3.6107 per $1,000 of assessed value, and an amount of $459,383 in property taxes in respect to voter-approved general obligation bonds for both the police station and the city hall bonds.
I'll second that.
Except if that includes the capital projects, then it's,
And then the CIP document is separate, the
plan is, the
It's
money's here, the plan.
plan's there, yep.
So Mayor Coons moved to approve the fiscal year 2026-2027 proposed budget as amended in the amount of $51,927,660, including levying the permanent tax rate of 3.6107 per thousand of assessed value in the amount of $459,383 in property tax in respect of a voter-approved general fund for both the police station and city hall bonds. Councilor McKeel, second, and Mayor, would you like to kick off the discussion since you?
I appreciate again all the detail and that, particularly the fact that this is all new to Sean and trying to figure out how to describe and explain to things. Better woman than I.
Imagine what it's gonna be like next year.
Well, I have so many ideas.
Say one thing was a lot different next year. So, I don't have any particular thing to say other than I support this. I think once again, we're being responsible, we're being effective, we're trying to get done with what we've got. And, rate increases suck. I will say that for the record, but, we don't have choices, right? Especially, again, I mean, we think this is bad for Power and Light, but with the changes in Bonneville and the federal energy policies, I'm extremely nervous about the future. So I think we are stepping into this as slowly as we can to be cautious and prepared for the future. That's my comment.
Any further discussion regarding the motion? Councilor Lopez?
Thank you, Chair. This is largely a process comment, and I 100% support this budget. There's a lot of amazing work by staff in this budget, by particular members of staff, but many members of staff, including individuals who are not here tonight. And you know, I think that we've seen revisions come out to these documents that have been passed down along the way that are reflecting comments and questions that, you know, occurred within this room tonight, or not tonight, but over the course of this process. So this is the strength of the process and the budget working in the way that it's intended. I too hold a little bit of concern over rate increases, over the growing PERS, burden, and some real challenging future directions that we as a city are going to have to deal with in the future, in future budgets, and likely surprises that will occur over the course of the year before this, budget is concluded that we're about to pass. And so I would just encourage everyone as they go about their lives and their years to think about, and I think it was maybe what Tom had said here, think about the levels of service that we expect and the levels of service that we require to get our baseline of community livability in light of what we're paying. Because those are the conversations that we're going to have, the tough conversations that we're going to have in this room in future years. And so I hope to see all of you around this table. I hope that we look back at, at this budget and grow and learn from it, but carry with us in our minds and our hearts those questions and come back to this table ready to make some tough decisions in the future. Thank you.
Councilor Carey?
I echo much of what Councilor Lopez indicated there. It can't be lost on us that our, in their 27 budget, we're gonna be 200,000 down in our beginning working capital. And we don't do the 5-year projection anymore. And it's probably good that we don't. But the fact is we're sort of burning our reserves. We have been for as long as I've been on the council. Fortunately, we have prudent administrators, prudent department heads, and so we sort of anticipate low on our revenue and high on our expenses and come out pretty good in the middle. That though is got to stick with us as we go forward. It was a little ominous that Rochelle mentioned that this is the last year we're going to be able to do it this way. So I don't know what's going to happen next year. If we can't continue to milk things down like we are, so that'll be interesting to see. And then we really need to be, and Chris touched on it and others have as well, we really need to be conscious of our ratepayers. In our enterprise funds, we can raise the rates and do all we want, but none of us want to do that. But that can be the temptation. So fiscal responsibility, and I think we've done it here. And thank goodness. And I hope everybody's back next year, because we're all wiser as each year goes by. So I'll be voting in favor, and again, I also commend the staff for putting the thing together in a fairly short time frame.
Further questions or comments, Councilor Roberts?
And I'll follow on with John. When I first started serving on council, with Manager McClure, he told me we had a 40% budget reserve, which was uncomfortable because the taxpayers of the city were paying into the general fund, and the money was just sitting there and not serving them in the way it needed to be served. So we started spending down, and we have definitely caught up with that now. And the future is going to be a challenge. On the subject of rates, I too am concerned about rate increases. I haven't seen an inclination on the part of our enterprise funds to raise rates just for the fun of it. It's always explained by master plans that call for those increases in order to fund the continued construction and maintenance of the systems we've got. Nothing worse than letting maintenance go by and finding yourself with how many year backlog of poles that need to be replaced and sewer lines that have collapsed and everything else. We've got work to do to bring our systems up to a good standard, not to mention continuing going forward. The only blessing, when I look at what our neighbors to the east pay for electricity and what we pay for electricity, residents of this city are getting by about half the cost on electricity because we had the foresight to become a public utility over a century ago, instead of depending on companies that have to pay stockholders and CEOs borrow money. And we need to, thank our predecessors for making that decision and giving us that. We're also faced with a situation where we're coming up against water. We may be having to make a significant investment in water. We may also find ourselves with changing standards suddenly finding the lagoon system, you know, on this sewage treatment. And if you wanna talk about an expense, it'll be a sewage treatment plant in Circle City. That'd probably be, it was 20 years ago, Scott told me $30 million. What is it gonna be now if we had to build a treatment? And you don't even want to think about that, do you? So, you know, the key to me is that we continue to keep our eye on the ball, and we continue to plan carefully for the future, without really getting into a whole lot of extravagance around here. Joe, for years, has been there sharing pencils down at City Hall, and I'm pretty sure that's still the case. So, and I just, you know, again, I support with this budget and what it does for the residents of the city. That's the bottom line, is what are we doing to keep the services that our residents expect? When we turn the light switch on, the lights come on, the faucet, and where the water goes, you know, those things are an important part of our public safety, on and on. The stuff that government does is good. Sometimes we get mad about it, but local government, where we really have control over what is just keeping it, you know. I support this budget. I thank staff for all the hard work. Sorry, sometimes I get a little overboard with this stuff, but I've been in the middle of it for over 20 years now. And I've seen nothing but conscientious, consistent, careful budgets through that whole time. 5 different city managers, including me.
To be brief, I would agree. Thank you.
Andy, sorry.
All right, now seeing any more hands. Oh,
Thank you, Chair. So I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of this budget, and we're really trying to consider what's coming up. And I think if we can be open to, and I know we are, to community questions and trying to explain, you know, whys of what we're doing. There's a lot of information. I think there's a lot of information that people just don't know. You know, like having programs that the LEAP program. Well, that's required to have the permits. I mean, like there's these small things that we might be like, well, we need to get rid of this, that, or the other, but we need to understand it. And if we can get a picture of what it may look like in this coming budget year, all of the challenges and the obstacles that we're facing, and then what does that look like? I think that's going to help us to hopefully really be considerate and about our decisions for next year's budget. But I think the continuing education is really helpful, you know, and just, and the departments, everything that they do and putting out information is going to just hopefully help us for next year, so.
I know.
Yeah, I'd just like to, you know, add on to that comment, and perhaps it might be a good idea that, you know, not wait until next February to have a meeting and, you know, have something a little bit more interim.
Yeah, we have a
Here's
plan.
what's going on. This is looking great. This is looking terrible. Heads up, things like that.
So we do have a plan, and John Kerry mentioned the 5-year plan, which we are going to bring back. Sean is very good at that. And I thought, let's wait for her expertise. So the plan is she's going to start preparing that. And then in the October, November timeframe, we're going to have a meeting with the budget committee. We'll go over what that looks like and what options. And so that we're not doing this, you know, in February. Then January, we will have the kickoff meeting, but we'll have more information and we're going to process those things to look at, are we looking at service levels? Are we looking at additional fees, those types of things? It'll also give us time to go through and make sure we are getting cost recovery on the current fees that we have. Find, you know, is there any other areas where we're not getting the revenue that we should be getting, like maybe the TLT program? Are we, you know, doing the code enforcement on that? So really trying to maximize what we are getting so that when we do those cuts, we know that we have all the revenue that we possibly can get in before we look into that. But that's kind of the plan. I'll do it now, but there's one other question. Another city does their budget committee meetings and they do it all in one day on a Saturday. Oh, no, nobody likes that. Okay, there we go. just thought we threw
I'm
that out
not
there.
used to it, I
That
just.
shocks me whenever I hear it. You can't imagine doing this in one day.
Do the whole, it's an all day event though. It's from 9 a.m. to like, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Some breakfast?
I know, are we gonna make an event of
It's
this?
city policy, you can, they can.
Yes.
that's lunch.
Okay, we just thought we threw that out there because we didn't know if that was something.
Call for the question.
Oh, thanks.
Roll call.
Pam, can we get a roll call, please?
Committee member Kistler,
Aye.
committee member Graham,
Aye.
committee member Carey,
Aye.
committee member McKeel,
Yes.
committee member Lowry,
Yes.
committee member Phelps. Aye. Committee member Coontz,
Aye.
committee member Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
committee member Perry,
Aye.
Chair Martinez,
Aye.
committee member Lopez,
Aye.
committee member Oberst,
Yes.
committee member Youngs.
Aye.
Unanimous.
We'll receive your.
That's awesome.
They school.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
And one last thing, thank you, Chair, for your good work tonight.
Oh, we say that. One more thing, We have one more thing, agenda item 20, approval of the 2027-2031 capital improvement plan. Is there a motion?
Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan.
Second.
Councilor Lopez moved to approve the CIP plan, Councilor Phelps second, Councilor Lopez, would you wish to speak to the motion?
There's a lot of amazing projects here. I believe that we've had robust discussion on many of them, and I won't belabor the point. Thank you, Chair.
Any further comments from the CIP plan? Seeing none, Ken, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Committee member Coontz,
Aye.
committee member Phelps,
Aye.
committee member Lowry,
Aye.
Chair Martinez,
Aye.
committee member Perry,
Aye.
committee member Lopez,
Aye.
committee member McKeel,
Yes.
committee member Carey,
Aye.
committee member Kistler,
Aye.
committee member Oberst,
Yes.
committee member Young,
Aye.
committee member Graham,
Abstain.
Wait, you can't abstain.
I can't abstain?
No, you have no reason to abstain. You have no conflict.
committee member Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
There is 12 in favor and 1 opposed.
We received a majority in favor, this CIP plan is approved. Motion passed. Alrighty.
I move to adjourn, Chair Martinez.
Awesome, second that. Thank you for your motion. I want to thank Pam Dornbush, our.
Yes.
Our title security champion in the back. Temporary coverage, our city manager and finance director for all working with and all of my fellow committee members for their service on the committee. Can't wait to see you at our next budget committee. And all in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye. Aye. And we are adjourned.
Good job, movies.
You haven't voted yet, vote.